All right, let's go over the auto detect feature and image detection and image detection depth settings. So the reason we have an auto detect feature is so that the computer can help to identify text and just identify uh, rectangles of images to make it easier for you to select them when building a query that's going to go to the LLM. And it also saves on like not having to send the image up to or the text up to the LLM just to identify whether it's text or not. So this is processing that's done on the computer before anything is sent to the LLM. So if I select auto detect here and I just pick the rectangle tool and let's just say I'm interested in this section of the screen. So now there's some analysis that's done after you select the area, and you can see in the green bounding boxes and blue bounding boxes are identifying text and images. The text is in blue and the images are in green. And then you can also see different little D:2, D:1. Those are depth levels. So the image analysis is looking at different depths of images, like nested images within each other. So then once you've detected this area, once it's detected images and text in the area, I can just click on different images and it will add them to the list over here. Now this list is building up resources that we're going to send to the language model. And it's also created a context screenshot here, which if I just hold it over this, you can see it's the whole area that we selected. I'm going to deselect that right now so that we don't send that to the language model, because I just want to send the specific things. Now I can also drag select over a few different text elements here, and you can see it combined those three colorful frog species and added them here as one element. And it's showing depth levels here, but actually that's not supposed to be showing up at all on text elements, so I'll have to fix that. So once you have the elements in that are selected for the query, then you can just submit the query to the language model. But the idea here is identify items on the screen, put bounding boxes around them, and allow you to then select them from the screen, like here, poison dart frog. Okay, so and this could be any text. Now, another thing that we can do here is, let's say that I've got this frog here and I have a specific question about this frog. So what I can do here is I can go to the three-dot menu and I could say, add text prompt before this item. And I can say, what species is the following frog image? And now that will be sent as a text element before the image and ask a specific question about it. You could also add additional instructions down here or questions. How many frogs total do you see in the images? Images. By the way, large language models are very good at spelling errors. So if I did spell this as GAES instead of the correct way, it's going to guess the correct spelling and should be fine. So don't worry about correcting typos too much when you send stuff to the LLM. I can select done selecting here up in the button, and then this is basically ready to send. You can also just hit the submit query button right away. Another thing you can do is, let's say it wasn't this frog that I wanted to know about for this, what the following species was, but it was this frog here, which, by the way, when you hover over it, and we save all these captured things in the conversation history, by the way, all these images. and you'll have access to them later. So if I wanted this frog to be underneath that question, I can simply drag this up here and change the position. And now let's say I wanted to ask an additional question about this one. About the blue one, I can say, why is the following frog image species blue? Okay. These bits of text may not be necessary, but I'm just going to leave them there as an example. And don't worry about these depth numbers again. They're actually not supposed to be on the text, because the text is all on one depth level. It's all on like the 0 level. I'll be fixing that, removing those. Those are meaningless in this case. So there you go. So there's a bunch of questions and resources. And now when I submit this, it's going to send all that stuff to the language model. So here we go. And these are realistic response times that I've been getting. I forgot to remove this sample roles thing. I have both a poet and a social justice advocate now talking about frogs instead of a scientist, which is very interesting. That should make for some interesting results. And here we go. It's identifying the first and second image. And then why is this frog blue? It goes into the pigmentation, total frog count. See, it's answering that last question. I see 2 frogs total. So you can see that was this question. So there you go. That's an example. Now, I think because it was such a mismatch between the content and the roles that we accidentally left in here, that it didn't really answer it very like poetically or in social justice context way, the social justice advocate role. So let's try something here. Let's just go into our roles and get rid of those. We didn't really want those there. That was accidentally left on there. And I'll get rid of this role as a social justice commentator. And let's go into education or research and say that you're a science educator. And that's the role we really want. So now I'm going to submit it. Let's see what kind of response we get back. I'm guessing it will be significantly different. It should be sort of much more technical. Serve as a science educator, specializing in scientific concepts, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now same question. It's going through the, okay. Fun fact, poison dart frogs raised in captivity are actually non-toxic. Oh, that's because they don't eat all the poisonous bugs. All right, well, it's not too much different of a response, but anyway, you get the point. So this is an example of how you would use sort of multiple resources within here, and you can see, well, let's take a look at the prompt preview. This is what actually would get sent to the LLM. You have this system prompt, and that's how Anthropic handles the roles. And then you have the actual messages. Now this is going to be a file path, but we're not going to show that here until it's created. And then it has the different questions in there. All right. Okay, so now let's talk about the actual settings for the auto detect feature. We go into settings and let's go to image detection. So here there are a lot of settings and a lot of default settings. The default settings work pretty well. Here, dynamic analysis, that has to do with when you make a change, will it immediately try to redetect the currently selected area. going to leave that off for now. Minimum area in pixels. This has to do with, not detecting areas that are too small, because this image detection algorithm can sometimes detect images that are just way too small. And then maximum area as a percentage of the selected area, like what's the the biggest image it'll detect. And this is to try to keep it from detecting gigantic images that you don't really want to detect. It can detect all sorts of different boundaries and such. And then under advanced, it goes into all these settings that are that affect how the image detection works. There's edge detection settings and shape filters and text overlap filters. I never touch this stuff, but it's all stuff that is actually part of the code that can be modified, and you can play with the text, the auto detect features in that way. One of the things that auto detect does with images is that it's detecting different depths, and you can tell it to do infinite depth, but my default max image depth to display is only 3 images deep, because usually you don't want all these little sub images that it's detecting, because it can be a very sensitive library. And that's where some of those other um, settings can come in, the advanced settings. And once you do detect images on the screen, let's do that now. Once you do detect images, you can see here there's like nested rectangles here, and it's showing depth 1 through 3. I can drag this slider and say, well, I only really want to show depth level 1. Now it's only showing a D1 on this image and all these images. And so then it's not doing like nested image detection. And let's put it back to 3. These are all just showing. Here's a D3 here. So when I click on this D3 here, you can see I can't get to the D1 or the D2. There's actually D1, 2, and 3 here. Now let's say you did want to be able to click through to the D1 or the D2 instead of this D3 for whatever reason. What you can do is you can select this one, and then it's showing up down here, and then you can click on the 3 button thing here and say enable click through. Now it's turned into a dashed one, and if I select now, it's now selecting the D2 image. You can see here. So I can, let's say the D2 is the one I really wanted. I can actually delete the D3 one, and now just the D2 is there. So that's one way of being able to, if there's overlapping image detection, you're able to drill through to the one you want if necessary. Go back into settings, image detection depth. And yeah, that's kind of what that's all about. If I do infinite depth, click OK. Let's reanalyze this whole area. See how many levels deep it goes. Sometimes it gets pretty crazy with how much stuff it detects. It got down to D4 here, and you can see that's the maximum depth that it's showing. But you can always use the slider again to get back to D1 or whatever level you need to get to show the images you want to show. And here's a good example of, like here, even though these are both D2, let's say this one is the one I want to select, but I'm trying to click through here. Okay, it's actually letting me in that case. Well, let's say it's this bottom D2 that I want to select, but I'm clicking this one and it's not letting me. That means this one is actually on top. So now I've got that second D2 image here, and I can say allow click through, and now I can click this one, and it's allowing me to click through to that one. Okay, so that's the click-through feature. And you are rarely going to have to use this, but it's just one feature that I've added in case you have some nested depth detection stuff going on that is keeping you from getting to the images you want to get to. And that pretty much sums up the depth detection stuff. Let me check here and see. This has to do with whether the D1 is displayed in the list items and whether it's displayed in the image rectangle. So if I turn these off, you can see it's turned off and on there. And then in the images or in the list, I can turn them on and off there. Okay.